Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I am your host, Dave Dalton, and I am excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AAU teams in the country. Well, it looks like the tank is on, and I will contend that the Pistons were not tanking until now. And you might think differently, but we were playing, I mentioned before, even good teams that are trying as hard as they can to win, they will rest players on back-to-backs. One of the games in a back-to-back, especially if they had an older player that played a lot of minutes. And we never did that. Not only did we not do that, but again, we had Bogey was injured. He had an injury to his calf or to his Achilles, and he sat out one game, missed practice one day, and then the next day he played 39 minutes. He played every minute in the second half. So my big mystery is that, and we will probably never know, is that what happened. So now we find out that Shams is reporting that Bogey is likely to be out for the season because of that same injury. Why does he go from just missing one game and then playing 39 minutes to being out for the season? And my best guess is that the Piston, Troy Weaver, or somebody had, with a little bit of sense, said, we can't be doing this, and we can injure him, and he can, and again, we have 15 wins, and we aren't going anywhere this year, and we want to get that 14% chance, and so it would, for so many reasons, help us, and if Bogey's coming back next year, we need to have him healthy, and we know what he can do. These last 15 or 16 games, we don't need to find what Bojan Bogdanovic can do. We've got to see all year, front row and center, including his last game that he played where he had 34 points and he was on fire. And so we were better off getting the 14%, having him rested for next, and healthy going into next year. At the end of the season, injuries are more likely to occur, especially among older players that have played a lot of minutes. And again, I mentioned that he had played in more games than any of the top 30 scorers in the NBA, and he was 30th, but he played the third most games out of any of those guys. And it just doesn't make sense. Those teams are battling for playoff spots, and still they're playing way less than what we played him. So anyway, we haven't rested any of our players. We have never rested a player the second day of a back-to-back. I've never seen it this year. So that's, bad news. And again, the other thing is we might be interested in trading him especially depending on where our draft pick falls. So, it's just for so many reasons, and a lot of teams, I think, besides the Pistons, they're saying that they're going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Well, guess what? 4 weeks is the last day of the season. So if you're reevaluated, then you're not playing. So the same thing happened with Stu. Now, Stu's different for me. I would love to have seen Stu get to play, 10 or 12 games here at the end of the year and get up some more three-point shots because it still is very inconclusive. We can still have some realm of faith that he can hit the three-point shot, but he had, started out a little bit slow, but then he got on fire for over a month and shot like 40% for over a month. And then he struggled for a stretch in the last few games he played before he was injured, but they said that I think an MRI shows that he has an impingement in his shoulder, and so they don't want to risk. But I'm confident he'll be healthy, but it still would have been great to see how he played with James Wiseman and how he played more with Jalen Duren, and to see if he can get some consistency and confidence going into the offseason on his three-point shot, because that is where his value is going to be if we got these three big centers, and I contend that one of them needs to play some power forward, some significant time at power forward, but not Stu. Stu's not, he's out of the picture there unless we make some trades that he's going to have to play the four. And if he plays the four, he has to make some, shoot 35 to 40% on threes. So it'll be interesting what happens there. But it's sad, it's disappointing that he's out for the year. It was good to see Duren came back tonight and Killian got to come back tonight. And we're going to talk more about them later. But I just want to say that, the Tankathon, the positive thing is we are almost assured of finishing in the bottom three. We can finish anywhere in that area. We are 15 and 52. The Hornets are in fourth place, 22 and 46. So they are 7 games. They have 7 more wins than us, and so it's almost impossible for us to win 8 more games than they do between now and the end of the year. Another heartbreaking thing, Hamidou Diallo, who has been probably our most consistent player the last 2 months, is done for the year. So he sprained his ankle in that last game that he played in against the Wizards towards the end of the game, and so his injury is serious enough that they're going to reevaluate him in 4 weeks, which again is almost exactly when the end of the season ends on April 9th. So we might never see him again in a Piston uniform. We might, who knows? He's going to deserve to get a significant contract. I think somewhere, 9 or 10 million a year, and it's just going to be interesting to see who wants him. He's a unique player. He's a great guy to come off the bench because you want an energy guy that can shoot a high percentage and make things happen. So we'll see what happens, with him in free agency. I know Troy really likes him, and Troy, he was around Troy when he was in Oklahoma City. So we have those 3 players. It appears that they are done for the year. And I listened to a podcast where they had a mock draft and they went off Tankathon. So Tankathon, again, go to that website and it says SIM, it's a simulator, and you click on that simulator, it randomly spits out the odds of what might happen in the lottery. And it wasn't good, the one they used. The Spurs got the first pick, and some other teams that were above us got the second and third. Washington or somebody got the second pick, and Orlando got the third pick, and Oklahoma City got the 4th pick. So we had the worst record at that time, but we got the 5th pick. So that's what you need to know also. It does matter in the bottom 3. It even pays to be the worst record, because if you have the worst record, you can get no worse than the 5th pick. If you have the second worst record, no worse than the 6th pick. And if you have the third worst record, no worse than the 7th pick. Well, the 7th pick is not good. And for my guesstimation on what the players look like, I feel strongly as of this moment that it's a 3-player draft. And so I will be devastated if we don't get one of the top 3 picks. And it can easily happen. It can happen. I've done that simulator lots of times, and in the randomness of the odds, it is very feasible that we don't. And so you still can say, you wanted us to tank all year, and then we didn't get it. And I said this last podcast too, but I still feel strongly that you give yourself the best chance. That's all you can do in life, is give yourself the best chance at something. And once we lost Cade, it was inevitable that we weren't going to have a good record. We needed to play our young guys, find out about them, and we still haven't found out everything we need to know. So another thing I want to talk about is, people talk about playing, the guard rotation, and what if we get Scoot? Well, a big thing I want to say is Cade and Ivey. Ivey has been a revelation this year, and he has exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations, especially with his playmaking. He was erratic tonight. He turned it over too much, and he didn't shoot well, and that's going to happen. Last game, he was out of this world against the Wizards. So that can continue to happen, but the thing that we got going for us is when Cade comes back, what has to happen, and Casey has never done this well. I watch every game. You just need to always have Cade or Ivey on the court, and if you stagger them, you can play them together a bunch of minutes, and you can play them, by themselves, but you want to have one of them on the court at all times, which I guess kind of leads you to thinking that Killian is out of the picture a little bit, and we'll discuss that. But the other thing is, if we got the second pick and we take Scoot, the math you need to do the math, and you can't just have two units like Casey likes to do. He likes to have 10 guys and play, you know, two different lineups separately. But if you had Scoot and Cade and Ivey, that's two positions. There's 48 minutes in the game, so two positions are 96 minutes. So you can play each of those guys 32 minutes. So 32 minutes, that's what Cade always played anyway. You also could play Cade, for example, 34 minutes, and then play Ivey and Scoot just a little bit less. And you can vary it based on foul trouble, based on who's playing better. And if somebody's struggling, you can just not give them as many minutes and give the other guys a little bit more minutes. And then you can maybe throw in another guard here or there for some time if you need to, especially there always are injuries. So it can't hurt to have, your fourth guard. But when Detroit had Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, and Vinnie Johnson, they played three guards. I watched those games. They played three guards. And if Vinny was on fire, which they called him the microwave, and because he heated up so fast. But he had a lot of bad games. Everybody thinks Vinny made every shot, but he was like about 41 or 42% overall. But when he could make six in a row, and Chuck Daly was the master. When Vinny was hot, he played more minutes, and Vinny was cold, he didn't get to play that much. So we got a lot to look forward to, but we have a lot of possibilities. Again, I think that what we do at the end of the season, trade-wise, will be dictated maybe by where we get to pick our pick. But the people that are after the third pick, after I think Brandon Miller, everybody else has some significant holes in their game, everybody thought this was such a great draft, but after studying it more and more, I'm not positive that it is. I think that after the third pick, there's a bunch of guys that could be good role players, and maybe some of them will turn into stars. Every year, there's players that are drafted like 15th. There's one guy or two guys or three guys that ended up being really good. This past year, it really happened. There's a lot of guys who were picked later in the draft that ended up being good. But it's not looking like this year. You have too many guys that are really good players, but they can't shoot. And guys can improve their shooting, but we'll just see. But the same thing, though, could be said for the post players. We have Bagley, Duren, and Wiseman. And so I just want to see Duren and Wiseman start together and see what happens. But you still, again, those two positions, the 4 and 5, you have 96 minutes. If you played everybody 32 minutes each, the three guys 32 minutes, that adds up to 96. So, but they don't come close to that. And maybe they think they can't play them together. But again, my refrain all year has been we have nothing to lose. After, Cade went down and things turned bad, we can experiment and see what happens and see what works. But it's just people don't get into the rhythm or whatever. So another thing I feel a little strongly about is, those guys don't always get touches. Our people don't feed the post. Kojo's not going to feed the post. I know last year he led the league in like dribbles per touch. Every time he gets it, he dribbles the ball into the ground, and he likes to shoot. He likes to shoot. It seems more than he likes to pass, and he played great tonight. And he shot well, and he helped us stay in the game. But why? Why do we want him playing in the fourth quarter and playing lots of minutes? Why is he playing 25 minutes? And even R.J. Hampton or Killian played 19 minutes, and Kojo, played 25 minutes. So I still say we are not trying to tank. I mean, if we were trying to tank and Killian's struggling, and he's a young guy that we have to find out how good he's going to be, why are we playing Corey Joseph way more minutes? Because, I know that Casey loves him, and he's trying to win the best that he can. And, I think it's just a little bit too late for that. One shout out is to the 2003 Detroit Shock. They went from worst in the league the year before, and then they won the WNBA championship in 2003. And they had Swin Cash, and another really underrated NBA player was Tweety Bird, they called her. And she was from Saginaw, and she could really play. Cheryl Ford was a rookie that year, and Ruth Riley, I got MVP of the finals, and they were tough-minded. And Bill Lambier says he was there tonight, and he said they changed the WNBA from a league that played mostly like college players to a league that played like more like the NBA. But I can just tell you, I was in 1996 is when the WNBA started, and I had season tickets for the WNBA. But they only played I think 30. I don't know, 30 some games, and so half of them were home. So I don't know if there's 18 games. So anyway, it was cool. I loved the Detroit Shock, and I really stopped following the WNBA once they got them out of the league. So that was a disappointment, but it was cool to see them there tonight. Another thing I want to talk about is Detroit fans. I don't live in Detroit. I live up near Traverse City. I live like 4 miles north of Detroit, and so when I go down there, I'll flip the radio on, and the only sports talk channel I can find down there is 97 Won the Ticket. And I don't know if any of you listen to them. Maybe you are big fans of the show, and maybe you think those guys are cool or whatever, and maybe they are for you. But for me, I go down there, and for like 5 years, all I heard them talk about is how terrible Matthew Stafford was. And then even after we traded him, until he won the Super Bowl, then they still trashed him until the day he won the Super Bowl. If he would have lost the Super Bowl, he still would be garbage. And now they still don't ever give him any credit. They just don't trash him. But so for 5 years, that would be no matter what time of the year. If it's during basketball season, spring, summer, it didn't matter. They talked about Matthew Stafford, but I don't remember the name of the host. I'm not going to give his name out anyway. But he was saying that the Tigers and the Tigers and the Red Wings are better off than the Pistons, and they're in a better spot in their rebuild than the Pistons. But I just will tell you that is garbage. The Tigers have a couple players, Torgelson and Green, that are decent players. Torgelson even got sent down to the minors. He was our number 1 draft pick a few years ago. But even by the time the Tigers get to be any good, those two guys would be gone. We finally got rid of Avelia, and we hired some good guys from some very well-run organizations. They're scouts and stuff. And so I am confident but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time. And baseball is harder than basketball to rebuild it because there's more players. And so anyway, I just thought that was, ridiculous. We have some real players, and you might disagree, but Cade, I'm just so excited about what he's going to do next year. And Ivey has been magnificent, especially every month he's gotten better. And Duren's played great. And we got this Wiseman kid, and, he is doing it, man. I mean, he's not great every night, but he has shown real signs. He's long, he's athletic, he's got skills, he's coordinated, and I'm so excited for him because I think this has given him some confidence. His confidence, it's hard when you're a young kid and you get drafted by the Warriors and you get injured all the time, and then you never get to play. And I have to chuckle about Charles Barkley tonight on TNT. He said, the Warriors were playing on TNT, and he said they got to get Kuminga and Wiseman doing better. And it's like, Chuck gets paid all this money, and he doesn't know what's going on in the league half the time. He's entertaining, though. I guess that's what those guys are, is they're entertaining. So anyway, we're going to look at the Wizards game. It was heartbreaker. It was 119 to 117, and we're playing with nobody. I mean, we had all our guys are injured, and they're sitting out. And so the Warriors won points in the paint 62 to 58. They shot 38% to our 48% from the field, and on threes they shot a lot better than we did, so that was tough. But Livers played an okay game. He played 37 minutes. So again, one of the big reasons why we traded Sadiq was because Troy really believes that Livers can be a player. And so he wanted to get him minutes, and as long as Sadiq and Bogey were playing, he was never going to get it. But he got lots of minutes against the Wizards. He had 9 points, only 3 for 12, 3 for 9 on threes, 3 rebounds. But nobody's talked about this. So at the end of the game scores tied, Bradley Beal. So the Wizards. The Wizards are playing to win. They need to win. They still want to make the playoffs, and they got Kuzma and Beal and Porzingis. They got three really outstanding NBA players, and their record is only 31 and 34, but that's a lot better than ours. And they're out there battling with everything they got. But Bradley Beal drives to the basket with the score tied at the end of the game, and Wiseman comes over to help because whoever was guarding him got beat. Wiseman jumps up way up over the rim, and Bradley Beal has to arc his shot way up over the rim, and he shoots the air ball. He shoots the ball completely over the rim. He doesn't get any iron on it, but Gafford, he's 7 foot tall, and I don't know how much he weighs, but he's a big guy, and he can jump anyway. So the truth was, none of the people say this. They said, well, we missed a box out. Well, if you watch that play, Gafford completely shoves Livers, and Livers, after the game's got his hands up. I can't believe it. Nobody mentions it. He just completely took him out, and then he got the rebound and scored at the buzzer, and the offensive rebound. So that it's a bummer. Like I said, I'm just as cool that we lost, but that was still hard. So Bagley, he played 30 minutes, and he had 15 points, 6 for 9 shooting. Again, I said this before, we don't look to get those guys. They're shooting that high of a percentage, and 66%, and we're not getting them the ball. We don't even look. We don't even look half the time. But like I said, it's new that Bagley's came back. He was hurt, and we just got Wiseman recently. They don't have that many practices, but they just need to spend some time in saying, hey, look at the post. They don't look at it, or they're afraid to throw it to the post. And it is somewhat of an art to get the ball to the post. But anyway, he was 3 for 3 on free throws, 5 rebounds, 4 assists for Marvin in this game. That is outstanding for a post player that doesn't get to touch the ball very much to have 4 assists. Wiseman, he didn't play so great the game before this, but he had 34 minutes, 21 points, 6 for 9, and 5 rebounds, 3 assists for him. So that's another great sign, plus 2 block shots. So that's what we have, going for us right now. Those are players that we want to look at, because other than that, we're playing Roddy Magruder 30 minutes. That's what we did in that game. But Ivey he was magnificent, 32 minutes, and he had 26 points. He was 9 for 20, which 9 for 20 doesn't sound as good as 10 for 20, for whatever reason. But he, really took over in the fourth quarter. He hadn't scored that much, in the first quarter he had 9 points and 4 assists. So he started out blazing. Then he sits out a lot of the second quarter. So, but then in the fourth quarter, he took over, and he scored, I think, 14 of his 26 in the fourth quarter. So he was 3 for 6 on threes. He hit one at the buzzer and it was a tough shot, but he was all the way zoned in on the basket. But he was 5 for 6 on free throws, and he had 5 rebounds, and he had 12 assists, and that's what was crazy. 12 assists. He had 13 assists the game before on low turnovers. He had 3 steals. And so, again, just it's so cool that, out of this year, if we didn't get anything, we got to find out that Ivey can play. We got to find out he can play lead guard or off guard. And like I said, if I'm coaching that team next year, I'm going to have one of those guys with the ball in their hands all 48 minutes. And then I'm going to play them together a lot too. So, and it's very easy to do. Like I said, you can play 3 players at 2 spots and play them all 32 minutes. And, but you could play those guys more, in a given game if you wanted to. So, but we got Kojo, and he got 31 minutes, and like I said, Casey loves him. He had 11 points, 4 for 7, 1 for 2, 2 for 2, 1 for 2 on threes, 2 for 2 on free throws, 3 rebounds, and he did have 6 assists and 1 turnover. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying that he's a bad player. I'm just saying we have R.J. Hampton, who we signed because he's a young player, and we want to find out what he can do. We might just have him for this year, but he had, why are we playing Corey Joseph? Corey Joseph is not going to be in the rotation. He's not. The coolest player we picked up this guy and signed him to a 10-game contract, Eugene Omariwai, and I said that wrong. Dwayne Casey can't even say it, he said. So um, he played 23 minutes, 15 points. There was no fear in that guy. He 5 for 11. He got 11 shots. He took more shots than Bagley and more shots than Duren. So that's Eugene, and he did good. I mean, he was tough. He's a solid built dude, man. He's 6'6" and he's at least 240, I gotta believe. He's 26 years old, but he has that toughness that Pistons like to have, and it'll be interesting if he comes. He had 6 rebounds. Well, we don't, who knows if he'll be on the team next year. I'm sure he'll get a second 10-day contract. So in the NBA, you can only give out 2 10-day contracts. But Hampton played 18 minutes, maybe his best game, 11 points, 3 for 7, 2 for 5 on threes. So, 3 for 4 from the line. So he had his best game. And again, we just want to find out what we can find out. And it hurts us that, Killian was hurt. And so he wasn't getting this time to develop because we just need to find out, and time's running out on Killian. I still don't doubt that you would want him on your roster. And we have him signed for next year. So unless we trade him, he will be a Piston next year. So, and he still can show that he can play next year, but I think it would be really good for him to find out, to try to get some of his shooting form back, but he did not do it tonight. So we lost to the Hornets 113 to 103, and again, we're playing with a makeshift team. Livers had a really good game, great game, 31 minutes, 13 points, 6 for 9 from the field, 1 for 3 on threes, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He hit a bunch of elbow jumpers tonight. He came off pin downs from Wiseman, would set a pick for him, and he'd pop up there, and instead of just shooting threes, he shot, some mid-range jumpers. But here's, again, the mystery, Bagley. We need to just find out things, and Bagley plays only 21 minutes, and he was only 2 for 6, but he took 6 shots, and so he had 6 points, but I don't get it, and Wiseman, he played 27 minutes, which, he would have played more, but they don't want to play two of those guys together. Between Bagley, Wiseman, and Duren, I just want to see them play, together. Play 2 of them at a time, not 3. I don't want all 3 of them to play at a time. The announcers tonight joked a little bit about that, but that's not what I'm looking for. And they don't even have to play the whole game, 2 of them on the court. But for a lot of the game, they should be, and we do need to do a better job. Wiseman's 16 points. He's 8 for 12. That's, again, he's shooting 70-some%, and we don't, or 66 or 70-some%. He had 13 rebounds. I like the way he went after the ball harder. Earlier in the, he hasn't played with us very long, but there were some times where he got his hands on some rebounds and got them taken away. Tonight, there was one play where him and one of the Hornets grabbed the ball, and they tried it. They both grabbed it at the same time, and they both struggled over it, and Wiseman ripped it away from him. So I thought that was really cool. But Magruder played 21 minutes and he starts for us. He had 9 points, 4 for 9, 1 for 4 on threes. Ivey did not have as good a game, but he still, he played a little bit out of control a couple times. He made some bad turnovers. He had some turnovers that weren't exactly his fault, but maybe he could have done better. But he had 16 points, 5 for 17, which is not a good percentage, 2 for 7 on threes, 4 for 4 from the line, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, but 7 turnovers. So that's the bad stat there. But like I said, Killian only played 19 minutes, and maybe it's just because he's coming back, but, now's the time. These last games, we don't have that many more, and hopefully he can get in a little groove and get in a little rhythm and make some shots, and so he can feel good going into the summer. That's why I started to say about Wiseman. I think it's so big. He got traded to this new team. He got thrown in there. I think the Pistons welcomed him with open arms, and obviously he's got an opportunity. But just it makes a big difference when you're going into the summer, and all the workouts you're going to put in, and you have this confidence in yourself that you've been successful when some people doubted you. And I know Casey said he plays with a chip on his shoulder. One other thing I keep forgetting to mention is Bagley earlier had 13 rebounds in a game, and Coach Casey said that Marvin told on himself. Well, what Marvin told on himself was by getting those 13 rebounds that he's capable of doing that, and now he told the Pistons he can do that, so he needs to do it more often. And I agree, but again, Marvin came back and he was attacking the glass better than I've ever seen him. But then he needs to be able to have nights that aren't as great, and he needs to have, like tonight, he needs to, when things aren't going exactly his way, he needs to play more than 21 minutes. He just does. And, again, we got between now and next year, we got these few games, and we're not going to find out everything about what our team's going to be like, but we needed to find out anyway. So Killian, he had 1 point, 19 minutes, 1 point, 0 for 6. He made one free throw. But in only 19 minutes, this is what kills me. Killian had 4 rebounds and 5 assists, and that is tremendous for a guard that played 19 minutes. But you can't be 0 for 6 and get to play on an NBA team. Our boy Eugene played 27 minutes, and he had 9 points, 3 for 6, 1 for 1 on threes, and 2 for 2. He had 5 fouls in only 27 minutes. Some of these games, the 2 games I've seen him, he got some bad calls where it even looked like he took the charge. But R.J. Hampton only played only 17 minutes, 8 points, 2 for 4. So he shot good, 1 for 1 on threes and 3 for 4 on free throws. But our buddy Kojo, 25 minutes, 17 points, 6 for 12, which is good, really good. 1 for 3 on threes, 4 for 6. So anyway, it was like I said. I think now that we're realizing, I think this is the first time tonight that I really could say that it looks like we're tanking. But I don't really think that. I think it would be foolish if Stu is hurt and to try to bring him back just to play a little bit when unless we're sure he's 100%. If we were sure he was 100%, he should play. Which again, Bogdanovich was not 100%, and they let him play 39 minutes in a game, and so we can't make that mistake. And like I said, Hami's spectacular season. I'm happy for him. He's earned himself a good contract by us or somebody else. So last thing I want to say is Ivey took a lot of heat for calling that timeout when the game we were down by 2 and we had the ball out on the sideline, and Ivey called the timeout when we didn't have a timeout. But I was watching part of a game when the Miami Heat were playing the New York Knicks, and I don't know if they just put him in the game, but they had half court, the ball was out, they had like 4 seconds left, and so they had Kevin Love, who they just signed. Cleveland bought him out, and Kevin Love, they brought in that veteran presence that can shoot the 3. Kevin Love he had a great game against the Pistons earlier this year for Cleveland, but he's inbounding the ball, and he throws it away. He threw it to the Knicks, and so that ended the game. And so everybody does it. Even if he's at least a 15-year veteran that's been an all-star and stuff, and he made mistakes too. So anyway, I want to thank my wife Kelly for all her help on this podcast, and my nephew Nathan, and I want to thank you, my great listeners. And there's still a lot to look forward to. We got the draft coming up. We have, there's going to be trades made as soon as the season gets over, just before the draft. Even bigger, we have the lottery, and it's a scary thing. So hopefully we get some lottery luck and get one of the top 3 picks at least, if not the number 1 pick. We're still going to have as good a chance as anybody, or better chance than anybody, but 2 other teams will have the same as them to get the top pick. But do something nice for somebody today. You'll make the world a better place by just saying something kind, doing something nice for anybody in your family. But thank you for listening, and go Pistons.